'cause Gavaskar, the real master, just like a wall. We couldn't know Gavaskar at all, not at all. You know the West Indies couldn't know Gavaskar at all.
Basically, what we're saying is nothing has happened to Bihar in the last week.
I mean, I don't think much happens to Bihar on a week by week basis anyway.
So it's once every 2 weeks then.
Maybe. Um, we have replaced one Bihar-born cricketer with another. Well, actually, we've not even replaced. Current Indian Test squad has two cricketers who were born in Bihar and are Bihari, though they play for Bengal. But they only play for Bengal because Bihar's cricket setup is shit.
They're also basically replacing a guy from UP who is probably better than both Biharis combined. But anyway, we'll not get into that. Who also played for Bengal.
Well, I mean, okay, listen. Comparing to Mohammad Shami is a bit like obviously he's one of the best ever. So
Fair enough. Welcome to the No Balls Cricket Podcast. I have a dark background behind me. Devrat is still an idiot. Welcome to the No Balls Cricket Podcast.
This is episode 47. We're getting close to 50. This is we're coming close to a milestone.
We're gonna do a proper 50. Yeah, we'll do a look back at 50 definitely. And for some reason, I really need to do that compilation where we all drink shit because I've been drinking a lot of weird stuff over the years.
You sound like you've been drinking a lot of weird stuff over the last couple of hours.
Hardly weird, but yes, white wine is it's always a happy day.
You know what? By your standards, actually, I'm gonna call white wine kind of weird because it's just too tame a drink for you.
Let's call it what it is, shall we? It's a light night. Yeah, that's something we used to do in Manchester. Anyway, welcome to the No Balls Cricket Podcast. As Mr. Devrat said, it is episode 47. And we really have not a lot on the agenda today. I actually have no more Bangladesh jokes. And yeah, let's just get into the roundup, shall we?
Right. We are supposed to be recapping the second test of the India England series and previewing the last three, but we'll get into that. Outside of that, the main thing, South Africa are in the middle of a tour to New Zealand, got walloped in the first test. It's actually a little unfair, honestly, to judge them too harshly because South Africa's like most of South Africa's regular test players are playing in their domestic T20 league, and it's kind of like they need that T20 league to succeed for South African cricket's like financial health. So they've sent a very understrength side. But and they got beaten by like an innings and 100 runs or something in the first test. Doing all right in the second test, actually, taking a first innings lead of about 34 runs. Let's see how the rest of that test goes. Neil Brand was captaining on debut, which hasn't happened in a while, and took a fifer in the first test. That was probably the achievement of note. Also, Rachin Ravindra remains one of the best young cricketers we've seen.
It's an interesting one. I'll tell you why. Neil Brand captaining on debut has not happened since I believe his name was Wayne Reefer, not Floyd Reefer.
Okay.
West Indies versus
Bangladesh. We should probably have looked this up before I brought it.
I don't care. It was something Reefer. And the series was West Indies versus Bangladesh 2009. It is if I'm not
okay.
If I'm not wrong, it is still the only time that Bangladesh have won a test series away from home outside of Zimbabwe.
Oh, that series. Okay.
Exactly. And also that is actually the series that gave birth to two legends. One an actual legend and the other one is Shakib Al Hasan.
We should make a point. Actually, technically, the last two people to have done this were the Ireland and Afghanistan captains when they were playing their first test. I think that's a little bit of because they were just playing their first test. for in their country's history. So by default, everyone was on their debut.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
okay. But the point is from someone who's from a test team that's already played their first test
yeah.
match.
So the correct answer was actually Naimur Rahman from Bangladesh in 2000.
No one cares.
Okay.
As usual.
I
It's
get no, I can.
Bangladesh. Nobody
I
cares.
just get because you're wrong. So therefore, I
Yeah,
get the
okay.
point.
Okay, you get the point. Anyway.
Anyway, so Neil Brand Pfeiffer on debut while being captain. Rachin Ravindra was a double century in that match. New Zealand won very comfortably. The second test looked a little bit more competitive. Let's see how it goes. Afghanistan and Sri Lanka are also in the middle of a series. Sri Lanka won the test match fairly handily. And the first ODI was actually pretty fun. It, it was a 300 play or more like a 350 plus 350 kind of match. Sri Lanka still kind of won fairly handily, but the Afghanistan in their chase had like a 250 odd run partnership for the 6 wicket to make it interesting. But yeah, Sri Lanka ultimately won the ODI series 3-0.
I'm
I
a little
think that's
upset
pretty
at
much
that.
it.
I'm a little upset at that, actually. I put money on Afghanistan to win tonight. Hey, it was worth a shot. Anyway.
Yeah, it was. I'm just thinking of otherwise, yeah, the only other thing international cricket wise was the under 19 World Cup where there was another India Australia final and Australia won again, and we don't really want to talk too much about it beyond that.
Also, the Australian women's team were playing South Africa. That ended up being a 2-1 win to Australia. Surprise, surprise.
But that one win for South Africa was South Africa's first win. I can't remember whether it was their first win in Australia or possibly their first win against Australia. I think it was their first win in Australia.
It was
But like
definitely
first
their
ever in their
first
history.
win,
So big result.
first win in
Yeah.
Australia for sure. But yes.
So that first match was a pretty big result for them.
Yeah. And with that out of the way, since we don't have too much else to say, why am I rhyming? It's kind of a crime. Anyway, moving on. It is time to get into the main segment of the evening. It is India versus England.
Right. So starting off with the second test, where England kind of made it interesting, but I feel like India's just between the double century for Jaiswal, the absolutely outstanding bowling from Jasprit Bumrah. England's tactics will always make a test seem closer than they are, but I think India actually won that a lot more handily than people are giving them credit for.
Having said that, had it not been for Jasprit Bumrah, who knows what would happen?
Oh yeah, no, of course. I think that spell in the England first innings was, I mean, firstly you knock off 3, 4, 5, and 6. It's kind of hard to top that, but just the the manner of the dismissal, the like working Joe Root over completely, doing the same to Bairstow, the absolutely outstanding, like once in a lifetime kind of Yorker to Ollie Pope.
That ball was ridiculous.
Yeah. And even when he got Ben Stokes out, Ben Stokes, like, he was just like, his own reaction at the time was like, what the hell? Like, what am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah.
Yeah. It is stunning. I think right now, like, easily the best all format fast bowler going. But I think at this particular moment in time, he has a claim to be the best test fast bowler. I think maybe a year ago I would have said Cummins or Rabada, but I think firstly, having seen Cummins struggle in India last year, and B, just the way Bumrah has sort of adapted to whatever conditions he's played in. And we're talking about a guy who's got 5 firsts in England, Australia, and South Africa, also in the West Indies, and then can do things like this on Indian pitches, where he has an outstanding average at home despite playing very few home tests. Yeah, he's something else.
So the point is, if you're an Indian fast bowler, you're normally compared to other Indian fast bowlers. When you're when you're Jasprit Bumrah, you're being compared to Michael Marshall.
Yeah, well, I mean, because he's just nothing like anything we've seen before, right? Your when you're talking about Indian fast bowlers, your benchmarks are Kapil, Srinath, Zahir, and
Yeah,
Bumrah's different to all of them. And I think he may not get to the same records just because he probably won't play the same volume of tests. But as
correct.
if you look at his talent and what he can produce, he's probably a better bowler than all.
He's a better bowler than all of them, and I always say this that if Jasprit Bumrah plays as much cricket as Jimmy Anderson, he'll probably have 900 test wickets.
Jimmy
It's
Anderson is
accurate.
getting close to getting close to 700. And
700,
actually,
yeah.
we should give him some credit too. I
No,
think
we're gonna
he's
give him credit. Yeah, we are gonna give him
yeah.
credit. And make no mistake, Jimmy Anderson, as much as I have shat on England and all of their great players of the last 10, 12 years as test records, he is a genuinely great fast bowler.
Yeah. He's also, I think, completely ended the Clouderson conversation. I think we're well past being able to call him that.
I mean, that was us being disingenuous, but we move on.
Well, it wasn't just us, to be fair. A lot of people
It
had
was
that.
everybody being disingenuous. But
Yeah.
look, Jimmy Anderson has almost 700 test wickets for a reason. The fact of the matter is, he's probably he's what 20 odd years into his career now.
Something like that. He's 41 years old. I can't remember when he made his debut.
2003, so he's 21 years into
Yeah.
his career, and he's still going. Okay, he's lost a little bit of pace, but in most cases, for people that have lost a little bit of pace, it becomes terminal. For Jimmy Anderson, it's just like, yeah, okay, so I'll move the ball a bit more.
Just too much.
Big whoop.
Just too much skill.
Just too much
skill to his bowling.
I'm not lying.
So, I mean,
I'm not lying about this when I say this next comment. But having seen him over the last 3 or 4 years, from when you thought he was done to now, he is legitimately the most skillful fast bowler I have seen since Wasim Akram.
I mean, he is going to have a legitimate claim to go down as the greatest fast bowler of all time. I don't think I personally don't think he's better than McGrath or a couple of the West Indians. But
Yeah.
he's building enough of a case that he's in that conversation, and I wouldn't begrudge anyone saying he's the best.
No.
Which in itself is something that I really don't want to give any Englishman that much credit. But
I mean, I'll never give Alistair Cook credit. I never will.
no, I agree. Yeah.
I stand by what I said about him 5 years ago, where he is possibly the shittest batsman ever to get 10,000 test runs. Just that he's played a lot.
Oh,
But
he's easily the shit. If you look at the list of batsmen who have scored 10,000 runs, Alistair Cook is easily the worst.
yeah, even in the averages it shows. But I will begrudgingly, as begrudgingly as it is, say that James Anderson has defied a lot of things. And yeah, he deserves his however many he gets at this point. Because I don't know how the fuck long he's going to keep playing.
Listen, he's only 16 tests away from 200. He's effectively an English team bowling version of Sachin at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's I don't make that. I don't make that comparison lightly because he's got the numbers and the record to show. Also, it's not just we're just saying he's had that longer career. Therefore, he's producing at a crazy level.
The whole point is he's been as good for a ridiculously long time. Anyway.
Yeah, and it also, I mean, it helped. What that meant was that on the second day of this test, we got second and third days both. We got treated to some outstanding fast bowling from both sides. what James Anderson did on the second morning to wrap up the Indian innings for probably maybe 50 to 100 runs less than they would have wanted ideally. Um, and then, of course, what Bumrah did later on in the day to just sort of rip out the heart of the England batting order.
I mean, Jasprit Bumrah is just a freak. Like, he is. How many fast bowlers do you know that can move the ball both ways in the air, both ways off the pitch, have searing pace, searing accuracy, be quick, have a crazy good bumper, and probably the best Yorker you've ever seen? Oh,
And let's
and
also not forget about the best slow ball you've ever seen.
best slow ball you've ever seen.
Okay, no, okay, I won't say best slow ball I've ever seen because I've seen Shoaib Akhtar do some crazy stuff with the slow ball.
We've also
But
seen Lasith Malinga.
it's one of the best. Yeah, and Lasith Malinga.
Yeah.
But I will go down. This is going down memory lane a little too much. But the Lord's Test in 2021, the slow ball he bowled to Ollie Robinson, which was like around the wicket and basically an off spinner that pinned him in front. Like Ashwin would have been proud of that delivery. Probably the best slow ball I've ever seen.
What about the one to Sean Marsh? Slow ball Yorker, last ball before lunch.
He's got a whole catalog of those as well. It goes to show. I think I was mentioning how easily the best all format bowler, and you see the white ball skills being applied here, and that's something that he does in a way that I think neither Cummins nor Rabada does in Test cricket. But the way he uses both the slower ball and the Yorker in Tests, it sets him apart.
Unreal. So basically, what happened in the last test was India batted first. Other than Jaiswal, no one really got runs.
Yeah.
Basically, then Bumrah just ripped the heart out of England's batting, except for Zach Crawley, who played a bit of a silly shot. Well, not really a silly shot, but sort of got out to spin. And from there, it sort of disintegrated a little bit. And
Which is kind of opened the floodgates.
Yeah. So India then ended up getting enough runs to make themselves safe in the second inning. And then the spinners just got about enough going for them that they could work through England.
Yeah, it wasn't that friendly of a pitch actually. It's not these have been fairly sporting pitches to an extent. I'd actually say they've almost too batter friendly, both of them. And in by Indian standards.
I mean, I wouldn't go that far because neither of those tests have gone beyond the fourth day.
That's true. They're not batting friendly in the sense of like turning into board draws or like they're not Rawalpindi. But it's just the level of
There's no highways is basically what you're saying.
They're not highways, but the level of assistance we're used to seeing in India, and I'm not saying every test needs to be in Indore or Indore 2023 or Ahmedabad 2021, but yeah, I mean, it kind of almost neutralized our own spin bowlers in a way. It's just like Ashwin, I thought, bowled some really clever spells, and Kuldeep, of course, I think showed the value of having a wrist spinner actually. But just the like even on day 4, there was very little turn. And it needed more of like bowling guile than any sort of assistance from the pitch to get wickets.
But you know what? I don't mind that. I think it's part and parcel of Test cricket to have conditions, especially on day 3 and 4 in India, where the pitch does slow down, and you get a little bit of inconsistent bounce, which there was at Visakhapatnam. And I think honestly, I have to say that if England didn't have this absolutely fucking bonkers approach to batting, it would have probably reached a 5th day. And that's what you expect from pitches. I think you have to accept that, okay, if you prepare a proper test match pitch, it's not going to do all that much. But Indian pitches obviously wake up towards the back end of the test match.
Well, which is where I think I have complaints about both these pitches is that they didn't really do anything on like they didn't exactly wake up. I think I mean honestly, India on day 4 bowled really well. Apart from I think there was England's approach is going to rattle bowlers all the time, but they bowl really well on day 4. But what we expect on a day 4 Indian pitch, like forget the crazy turners where people have seen balls turning square on day 1. I'm talking about like an actual day 4 Indian pitch. This wasn't that. And full credit to India for still getting the 9 wickets they needed on the day. And winning fairly comfortably in the end. But it was a very slow and fairly easy pitch.
I think that wicket kind of gave you a true reflection of where the series is at, where India's approach to batting wasn't maybe not as timid as it was in Hyderabad, but it's still not there yet. And I think a lot of that, as everybody said, is down to a bit of inexperience, but also a little bit of a lack of intent with the bat. I mean, we saw that in the first test. It wasn't as evident in the second one because they batted, as Sunil Gavaskar would have been very happy with, a bit more responsibility.
Yeah, and I think actually no one really encapsulates this as much as Shubman Gill, because you've seen Jaiswal come out. He's so far he hasn't really seen hardship in Test cricket. He got a century on debut. He had a somewhat tough series against South Africa, but those were crazy pitches to bat on anyway. He's come in, bashed some fairly bad bowling for a double century. Good for him. Gill, we know, has been in a run of bad form, and then of course got out fairly stupidly in the first innings. And then even in the second innings, he started very tentatively, got a bit of luck that he needed. He could have been out twice. He was given out and he inside edged a ball that he knew nothing about. And he sort of reviewed it out of hope. After that, he kind of came out of his shell, and I think he showed the intent that we've been waiting to see from him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that bodes well for the rest of the series, I think. Though I think he's liable to be walked over by Anderson. I think it's just he's already gotten out to Anderson like 5 or 6 times in Test cricket, and they've only played each other in 7 matches. The rest of the batting, you expect Rohit Sharma to come good at some point, and his intent. I don't think his intent per se has really been in question, apart from maybe in the first innings of the first test.
The first innings,
yeah. Shreyas Iyer has been dropped, and I think it's probably good for him right now. He's too good to be like a full-time Ranji cricketer. We've already seen him boss those attacks, but he probably needs that time again. It'll be interesting to see how someone like Rajat Patil, who had a decent innings on debut, nothing great, but at least looked comfortable. It'll be good to see how he sort of builds on that. Because he's someone who, when he bats in domestic cricket, does bat with intent. He's very much a if the ball's there for me to hit, I will hit it sort of player.
So selection. Well, England have obviously decided their 11. They've only made the one change. Shoaib Bashir is out and Mark Wood's in. So obviously going with another pacer for the third test. But India have another interesting dilemma because Jadeja comes back in if he's fit, and by all metrics, he probably is going to be.
Yeah, it looks like he is fit. So
yeah, so he'll come back in, which means you have a really awkward choice between dropping Kuldeep, who was, to be fair, pretty outstanding in the last game. He provided control.
I'm actually going to stop you right there. I'm going to stop you right there. I don't think dropping Kuldeep is an option. I think I think Kuldeep is like penciled into the 11 now, guaranteed a spot. The choice will be between Akshar or like a full-fledged batter, and most likely Sarfaraz Khan making his debut. It's Kuldeep's definitely getting in. It's a debate about whether you value Akshar, who's been, honestly, since he's made his Test debut, he's been one of India's best Test batters, and especially at home, pretty much rescued us in 2 wins last year against Australia, where his bat was the difference. And the fact that then he can also bowl a few overs, or do you just go with the frontline batter like Sarfaraz Khan? Even though he's on his debut, you know what he's been doing in domestic cricket.
That's a hard choice, and honestly, I'd be really tempted with playing Akshar Patel, but here's the thing. If Akshar Patel is playing, then Kuldeep is playing. And Kuldeep is playing well. 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 there's one person in the squad that if you're looking at that metric to get a few overs in, I don't think Akshay is your man. Because I think Akshay is a batter first and a bowler first and a batter next. There is, however, one player in your squad over Sarfraz Khan who is probably a batsman first and a bowler second and can do both things. And he's actually Washington Sundar.
I hear you. And I mean, we've seen Washi bat really well on a couple of occasions, actually.
Yeah.
Not least the 96 not out against England a few years ago, where I think, in fact, you denied a century, possibly because Akshay got out to a stupid shot. But like I said, I think the way Akshar's batted in Indian conditions over the last couple of years, I mean, we went through this. We looked at the averages of all of India's batters, and Akshar had, like, I think, was better than anyone bar Rohit Sharma, or possibly better than all of them.
Yeah.
So his batting at this point is good enough that he, at least on home, on these kinds of pitches, he could be picked as a batter alone. I'm not sure there's a big, right now, Akshar's bowling has kind of dipped. I'm not sure there's a big difference in bowling quality between Akshar and Washington Sundar. I think they're both kind of darted in sort of bowlers. It's just that they turn it, in opposite directions.
Yeah. So I think for me, it comes down to, but ironically, if you're playing Kuldeep, then it comes down to a straight choice between Jadeja and Akshar.
Oh no! Again, Jadeja's in. If he's fit, he's in. They're not choosing between Jadeja.
There shouldn't be a conversation about that.
Yeah. It is really just Akshar or Sarfraz, I think. They might consider Washington Sundar, like you said. He is in the squad. But it's between, I think those are your choices. Do you get a bowling all-rounder who has proved himself pretty highly with the bat, or do you just get a frontline batter?
Yeah, that's one of the selection dilemmas. And the other one, obviously, is which wicketkeeper do you pick?
Yeah, and I've been banging the KS Bharat drum, but I've been banging that drum because I'm not as worried about his batting, and I think his keeping brings value. But I do think there have been occasions this series where he's been a little short of the mark behind the stumps. The first test he dropped Ben Stokes, I think when Ben Stokes was on like 40 or something. He only made another 30 runs after that. But those 30 runs were in partnership with other players who also added on, and I think that probably could have been the difference between winning and losing that test, given how close we ended up getting. Thankfully, this one didn't cost us as much, but there was a fairly easy stumping chance against Ollie Pope in the first innings. That first ball, actually, Ollie Pope first ball could have gotten him out, and there's no way he should have been missing that. And these are both easy chances; these are not difficult. If they were a little difficult, I would have cut him some slack. But both of these chances I'm talking about are pretty easy. So I don't know. It looks like what we've seen from like pictures of practice in the last couple of days, it looks like there could be a change, and Dhruv Jurel could come in. He does at least come with a reputation of being a better batter than KS Bharat.
I mean, look, the whole point around Bharat is again, and we've said this multiple times on the pod, is it goes back to 2018, 2019, and the whole Pant versus Saha debate is Pant will get you more runs, but Saha is a more reliable wicketkeeper. And the whole point of the argument is it becomes completely moot when the wicketkeeper that you bank on to hold those one or two catches or stumpings that you expect the other guy who's getting you runs to miss. If your wicketkeeper that you've picked to do that misses those, the argument becomes pointless.
That's where the issue is for me. I would have been fine with his. I think his batting would have. I think the conversation around his batting has been a little overblown because a lot of his batting came in that series against Australia, where honestly it was very difficult pitches to bat on.
Yeah, those were not easy pitches.
Yeah, but exactly, it's if you're being picked as a keeper and you're missing chances that probably worse keepers than you would take, then that's what I think there's a concern.
And that's where then you like, okay, fine. Well, I don't really give a shit about who's keeping. I want the guy to get me 20 extra runs.
Yeah, and probably Dhruv Jurel is the one who does that. at this stage, it looks like he might be making his debut, which would be interesting. That would be at two players on their debut in this 11. We haven't done that too often. Funnily enough, last time we did do that was the tour of Australia, which in 2020 and 2021, where we had I think we had Saini and um,
Natarajan
Natarajan on their debut together, or Washi and Natarajan on their
and
debut
Washi.
together.
Well, and Washi as well. There are three of them.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, of course, that was an look.
that was
That
also completely extreme. We
yeah,
had
yeah,
Kohli go back for the
exactly.
birth of his kid and loads of injuries also.
Yeah, yeah. So I think those were exceptional circumstances. But that's where we're at. Like you're missing a lot of senior players, and it is what it is. And the point
Yeah.
is, you're playing at home, so you'd still be okay with that. I think if you were away from home, like we were at the Gabba, it would have been a different story. But I think at home, it's you can manage with.
Yeah, it's a good time to make that kind of give those kind of debuts. The other thing is, we've missed someone like Rishabh Pant, who I think has been since since that Gabba test, really. He's been India's best test batter. Um,
Yeah,
and it's more than the fact that he's been India's best test batter because he's produced, but it's also the intent that he brings that most of India's other batters don't bring. And we're hoping that someone like Dhruv Jurel does bring that with him. Ishan Kishan was supposed to do that. He's currently not in the squad, and there's a lot of controversy around that. But hopefully Dhruv Jurel is the guy who kind of steps up to the plate, and no one needs him to be Pant, but if you can bring that kind of intent to the batting lower down the order, it'd be good.
yeah, absolutely. On the flip side of things, how are England looking at this series? I mean, they've sort of okay. I don't want to call it a fluke, but they didn't exactly bar Ollie Pope. I think who was completely brilliant in that first test. I mean, um, they did well enough to win that first test. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, the first test was a heist, and give them full credit for pulling it off.
Yeah, they
But
put it up.
honestly,
Full credit.
honestly, India let them back into that in the third and fourth innings with some sort of indifferent bowling and batting. Yeah. On balance, here's the thing: you look at the media coverage of this England side in particular, but just in general of the whole series, and you'll think like it seems like a very evenly contested series so far. And it's been, it's had its moments. It's been fairly close. It is 1-1 after two tests, so can't really get closer than that. I would say on the balance of play, it should be 2-0 to India. And it would be were it not for, like you said, that Ollie Pope innings, and then combine that with the way India batted on day 4 of that test match. The debut, the sort of inexperience of the India batting order is probably what's really sort of leveling the playing field to an extent. But England's spin attack is also inexperienced, and I think that probably will come into play a bit more. They've bowled well in the first two tests, but I think as the series goes on, India's batting lineup is figuring them out. More than that, I think India's spin bowlers will start to figure it out. I don't expect Ashwin to, and Ashwin really, I think he started showing his form in the second test, and I think he'll probably kick on for the rest of the series. Kuldeep, I'm not sure they really have answers for. Now that they've won one test, I don't want to be as cocky as I was when I predicted 5-0, but I can very easily see India winning all three of these tests. Potentially Rajkot could be a draw because just that pitch is very.
It just that pitch is just no. But I mean, here's the thing: knowing England, they'll go all out, and something could happen. You never know.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. But I just expect the one thing I do think, especially in this test, and I don't think they'll pick two quicks in Ranchi. They might do it in Dharamshala.
Yeah, they
But
probably will
this
do it in
test,
Dharamshala.
yeah, and I think Mark Wood might be a difference maker because we've seen, in IPL cricket and in on the A tours, etc. As kind of someone who struggles with a bit of extra pace. I don't know how. We know Gill, Jaiswal, Rohit can all handle it, but the rest of the batting lineup, which is, like we said, a little inexperienced, how they'll manage. But a little more application from the batters, and they should come back to putting up, close to 500 runs against his bowling attack. They nearly did it in the first test. Second test, somehow they got bowled for under 400 in the first innings. Should not have happened. But if they play the way we know they're capable of playing, and now we know Jaiswal and Gill are in form, Rohit Sharma probably is due a big score. He's looked good before getting any big score so far. They pull it together. I think that batting and that bowling should come good.
So here's the thing. I think so far England have been pretty they've been pretty lucky that India haven't actually played to their full potential at home.
Yeah.
And I think if there's a test match where and bear in mind we get the same kinds of pitches that we've been getting in this series, which are not exactly batting friendly, but not like square turners. You know, I think if India play up to their potential on those kinds of pitches, they will win the series against BazBall, because BazBall is so much of a lottery at times, it just doesn't work.
And I mean, the other thing we could say on the flip side is that someone like Joe Root, who has a great record in India, hasn't really come good yet. And it's worth asking if he's actually been great in this BazBall era. His average is higher than it used to be, and he's scoring at a great strike rate. But like we saw in the second innings of that second test, where he got out to a fairly rash shot, like he's been gotten out by good bowling, but he's also capable of getting himself out now. Is he like Rohit Sharma? Is it a case of he's also due a big score now, or is it just that we're figuring out how to get these batters out even with this approach?
So here's the thing with Joe Root, because he's such a good batsman, and with pre-BazBall, he used to play at a certain tempo. Now, my question is very simple. Does Joe Root, to fit into the BazBall philosophy, does he really need to play the same kind of shots that everybody else is doing? Because he could probably score just as quickly doing more conventional things.
That's true. I mean, the common thing with Joe Root was that, suddenly you look up and he's on 30 not out, and it's like 30 off of 40 balls or whatever, which is like, okay, I know that now in the BazBall era you're supposed to be 30 off 25, but 30 off 40 is very quick for a test match.
Yeah, exactly. And to be fair, we've seen Ben Stokes sort of do it, where he's sort of bedded himself in, and then he starts going after bowlers.
Yeah, I mean, Ben Stokes is actually, it's very funny. He's the captain who's sort of empowered everyone to, bat a lot quicker and more aggressively. And his own batting has kind of gone the other way. He's very circumspect. It's almost like every innings he's kind of setting himself up for like, okay, I'm gonna somehow get from like 10 of 60 to 100 of 90 in some way.
Yeah, and you know what? He has the capability of doing it. And with that in mind, again, I come back to Joe Root, because I think Joe Root is unquestionably part of the Fab Four. Like, there's no question about it. He's one of the best batsmen we've seen in a long, long time. Does he really need to play the way that everybody else in that team does? Or can he score at the same tempo? Because from what we've seen of BazBall is, it doesn't matter what shots you play, it's the tempo that you score at. And it's the intent more than anything.
It's the intent. I think what it is, and we've had this conversation with Rohit Sharma so many times because of the ways he gets out. What it really is that if you back yourself to play a shot, you should play it. I think that's what really the sort of ethos is now. So you see the way he got out in that second innings, where he's looking to charge and slog Ashwin to the leg side, and Ashwin pushes it wide and he gets out. When you look at it, it's a terrible shot. And if Rohit Sharma got out that way, oh my God, we would have a national inquest.
No, you'd have a Sunny G inquest, not a national.
People would be asking him to be sacked from the captaincy. And by the way, his captaincy hasn't been great anyway. But when Joe Root does it, it's fine, because that's the new approach.
slow down. Stop it. No. His captaincy has been great. Him doing A to Kuldeep Yadav is just fucking beautiful. How can we forget that?
Okay, fair enough. Okay, his captaincy has produced some excellent memes. I will give him that. Um,
Hey, but
I
what
think
is good captaincy
he's.
without some memes?
This is true. Virat Kohli produced some memes while also being a better captain. Is all I'm saying.
Fair enough.
Yeah, probably not. His Rohit Sharma's memes are better. I will say that. The quality of the Rohit Sharma meme moments are better than Virat Kohli's memes.
Rohit Sharma passes the vibe check more than Virat Kohli did.
Yes. But point being, if Rohit Sharma gets out the way Joe Root does, like that's the headline for the next 2 weeks. We had a 2 week gap between tests also. That's literally all we would have been talking about. Joe Root gets out that way. It's like, okay, this is what baseball is. You- You're right. He doesn't need to play that way, but also I think we the way that team is set up now, I think the does he need to play that shot question just never comes up. It's can you play this way? Do you back yourself to hit that shot? If yes, then go for it.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess the way they've set it up is if you do it and you die trying, so be it.
Exactly. And we've seen Joe Root probably even before this era, but especially in this baseball era, play some ridiculous shots. Like some of the reverse scoops he was playing over leg slip or fine leg or whatever for fours and sixes, which he's always had in his repertoire. We've seen it in limited overs, and he's brought that into his test game. Like he's empowered to play those shots. A lot of people wouldn't play those shots in test cricket, but he's made us, he's successful doing it. I don't know how much he's actually going to change his approach just because he got out that one this one way.
Fair enough. So the question really remains. Well, now that we're in Rajkot, two questions remain. Are we going to get a pitch that Niket described? Chennai 21. English look, Indian condition.
Well, I mean, and 2016, that series where we won 4-0, Rajkot was the first test. It ended in a draw. England actually were closer to winning it than India
Yeah.
were.
Yeah.
We've also seen what England can do on really flat pitches when we have the tour of Pakistan from 2022 as in our memory. If it's flat enough that they can go at 5 and over across a whole innings and score big, not just get out for like 250 in 50 overs, they might be in with a shout here.
They do have one
that's
big
probably
problem though. The problem England will always have with the way they play baseball cricket, even in flat conditions, is there is one man in that Indian lineup. Or, well, actually, if you have Kuldeep, it'll be two who can stop them from doing it.
we saw what Bumrah did in the second test. I will say, and I said, I mean, Bumrah again, great, best bowler in the world, right? Best fast bowler in the world right now. We saw that that makeup test from the end of the India-England away series in 2022, where England were chasing what was it, 378. And 378 for three. Bumrah was kind of completely ineffective. Him and Shami, like Shardul and Siraj got taken down. But even he and Shami were pretty much negated by some excellent batting from Root and Bairstow.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably more effective on this pitch than that pitch. England were producing some absolutely ridiculously flat pitches at that time. But the more recent memory is him stopping baseball in its tracks with an absolutely wonderful spell of reverse swing. I think he could probably produce that again in Indian conditions. But yeah, it's Kuldeep is also a big X factor. I think Ashwin bowls better than he has so far. I mean, he's already on a bit of an upward trajectory there. Jadeja's on his home pitch. I think again the quality in the Indian bowling lineup probably makes a difference if everyone plays to their potential. Like you were saying about the batting as well. If everyone playing to their potential, it's funny that at this point in time, Siraj will be the weak link because he's not at all a weak link in any.
No, that's the thing.
Among these five bowlers, he's probably the one they might choose to attack. This might be England's best chance to win a test the rest of the series, but I still back India to do it.
How much of a factor do you think bringing Wood back would be? Because I'm not so certain about that. I mean, I okay. Let's look at it this way. I think he's a better shout than Shoaib Bashir, but I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference.
I think on these pitches, his pace kind of gets negated a bit. It's not the Gabba or any of those Aussie pitches. And to be fair, I think Australia played him pretty well as well. But yeah, he's a little less threatening because these pitches kind of take the pace out of his bowling a bit. We know. I think the one person he might look to target would be Sarfraz Khan, who's kind of like the way Shreyas Iyer as a short ball weakness. I think Sarfraz Khan might have a similar one at high pace. Other than that, I don't know. I'm not sure that any of the batters are really troubled by just that level of pace. I think we saw the difference. Like Anderson was more troubling, and it's because Anderson brings a lot more skill, steaming and swinging the ball both directions. That was the bigger concern so far in the last few tests compared to what Wood. And also Anderson can bowl longer spells, and that really changes the equation. That Would you kind of have to max him out at 4 overs?
So the big question here is, and this is just before we move on. Are we predicting a draw? Strangely.
Have England played a draw yet? In any of their BazBall era tests? I'm trying to remember. I think there might have been there was one against Australia, but that was rain affected. Other than that, I'm not sure they've drawn a test at any point since McCullum and Stokes took over.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be a very interesting test match because there's multiple factors at play. One is the pitch itself. 2 is how will England approach it. 3 is how will India approach it.
Yeah, and especially inexperienced batting lineup with obviously Jaiswal's still pretty young, though he's in great form and he's showing well. But obviously no Kohli for the rest of the series. Shreyas has been dropped, so you're looking at Patidar, who's only played 1 test. Sarfraz possibly on debut.
No KL Rahul either. So simply put, we think that England are incapable of drawing a test match.
I think unless some miracle rain happens, which given that it's February in Gujarat, I highly doubt it.
It's Rajkot in February. I mean, unless global warming really has to strike.
Yeah. No, I doubt there's gonna be some rain. This is the flattest pitch possibly we're getting all series, and this is where BazBall really comes to play. I do think though, it's like I feel like the whole BazBall thing has been, and this has been true ever since it happened, but I think especially in this series, I think it's really been overstated. Outside of one innings, I mean, we're talking about a team that has been bowled out for under 300 3 times out of 4 innings, and it's just that because of the way they approach the game, sometimes it feels like a team that is still winning fairly comfortably they feel a bit more under pressure than they are. But
okay, yeah, forget all of that. I vote India win, and then we go on from there.
I do want to say I've been waiting to make this point for a while, and I think I probably have made this point in like Ashes series or whatever. But I feel like England are very much getting high on their own supply. Like the team, the media, there's like, and I can't believe the words that are about to come out of my mouth right now. But I actually have to give some credit to Michael Vaughan for finally saying, "Hey, maybe this may not work as well as we thought." Because if you look at, I get that they won the first test, and so technically they've been proven right. But like Ben Duckett being like, we're in the game, 190 down, we're right where we need to be. Just so happened that because of one really good innings, they won that game. Or him also saying that, reverse sweeps are like defense shots for it. You get the whole like James Anderson on the start of the 4th day thing of the second test. Being like, this test we're gonna look to knock these runs off today. We're not looking to go into a 5th day. So great, that's exactly how they approached it. They just were not going to win with that bowling attack and that big a target. You look at if anyone frequents the Crick Info page as much as I do, which is I go on like maybe 5 times a day. You look at Steve Armison's analysis, and he's going on about how how Ben Stokes' captaincy is the difference maker in this series.
Yeah.
I don't think Ben Stokes' captaincy is a difference maker in the series. I think Rohit Sharma's slightly worse. The fact that he's not captaining as well as he can is the difference maker so far.
I actually have a very different theory, and I saw this during the Ashes as well, where the way they play, I think the players that you have to play against them are the ones that are most likely to be natural wicket takers. So if you saw in that series, Mitchell Stark took a lot of wickets. And I think here, the people that are natural wicket takers, somebody like a Bumrah or a Kuldeep Yadav, those are the ones that are going to be most successful against them. So if you play those players, I don't see them having too much of a chance because they're taking far too many risks for their own good.
And here's the reason I really do want one like absolutely classic Indian minefield of a pitch, because I generally want to see. I know we've had this conversation about how if you make it too spin friendly, you let really bad bowlers also come in and pick 5-6 wickets up, like we've seen the Joe Root spell, of course, from Ahmedabad a couple of years ago. But I just really want to see how that batting goes against every ball turning square against Ashwin and Jadeja. I'm happy we're getting good quality Test cricket, but I just really want to see that matchup once. That Chennai or Ahmedabad or Indore type pitch and Ashwin and Jadeja bowling on those. Forget how much it can help Rayan Ahmed and Tom Hartley and whatever. We have been throwing our wickets away anyway. We've been doing it on flat pitches. I just really want to see I want to see how well Ben Duckett can reverse sweep Ashwin on a pitch where it is crazy bounce and turn. I want to see that.
You might get that at Ranchi.
We might get that in Ranchi, yeah.
Yeah. Also, might depend on whether we win the next test or not.
Oh, I think if we lose the next test, we're definitely getting a square.
Yeah, you're I'm so sure that if we lose in Rajkot, we're getting that in Ranchi.
If we go into the last two tests 2-1 down, I think that both tests are going to be absolute square turners.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, it remains to be seen what happens.
Anyway, Ben Stokes is playing his 100th test match. Ashwin is 1 wicket away from 400.
500. 500.
Sorry, 500. 1 wicket away from 500. Anderson's what? 5 away from 700?
4. 696, isn't he?
4 away. Yeah, 696. Sorry. So he's 4 away from 700. What did Shane Warne finish on? 708? So
708. 708.
13 wickets away from going past Shane Warne. At which point only Murli would be left.
Yeah, should be interesting. Right. On that very interesting note, it is time to move on to our favorite segment of the evening. There is no grand intro because we only have one thing. Because there was a man on Twitter who came up with the most beautiful comment. This is the No Balls Cricket Awards, by the way. So, we all know our good friend, Mr. Johns. Do we not?
Yes, and John called Jadeja the best all-rounder of his generation, which I think is not true.
It may not be true, but he's not far off.
Yeah, he's not far off. I think the one player better than him is the one the Bangladeshis are mentioning right now.
But here's the bit about this. This man goes on to say Shakib was number 1 all-rounder when Jadeja debuted in international cricket. He is still number 1 all-rounder in the world. Now, why he wins a No Balls Cricket Award is I am going to zoom out and you can zoom in on me now. I say he wins a No Balls Cricket Award for delusion. He wins this week's No Balls Delulu Award. Congratulations, my friend.
As you pointed out, on the current ICC Test ranking, Jadeja is the number 1 all-rounder. Shakib has also been dethroned as #1 ODI all-rounder because Mohammad Nabi has taken that after that innings I referenced very briefly in the roundup where he scored 136 or something. All that being said, Shakib is still the best all-rounder of his generation by far. I don't think. I mean, okay, by far is a bit of an exaggeration. I think Jadeja has been really good, and especially in the last 5 odd years. But yeah.
But. I want to finish this episode on a great, very beautiful note. If you would provide me 1 minute to show you why, I will show you why.
All right. While you do that, I'll since we are recording on Valentine's Day, I'll throw in some maybe some loving comments. We want to shout out Shoaib Malik and Sania Mirza for breaking our hearts, breaking each other's hearts apparently, or at least one did to the other. Yeah. I would also want to give a shout out to the ICC trophies for breaking India's heart and always ditching us for Australia.
Amazing. No one gives a shit. Here's why. Here is what I wanted to provide to everybody from who agrees with this man. And guess where he is from?
We already know he's from Bangladesh. There's no need to guess that.
Yes. But now, you see, this is a map of what happens when all of the Himalayan glaciers melt. And if I zoom in, the name here is not Bangladesh. It is Bangladesh Sea Republic.
Oh dear Lord.
And on that very happy note, it is time to end. Thank you all for watching.
Oh man.
Have a good day. You're probably going to see this on day 2 of the test match.
Yeah. Speaking of which, go check out our last 2 episodes as well. We somehow managed to put them out very late into the series. But
Yes.
yeah. We have a series preview that's out that may still be relevant. We have a first test recap that's out, is probably still relevant. And yeah, definitely check out this one.
Have a good one.
It was Gavaskar, the real master, just like a wall. We couldn't know Gavaskar at all, not at all. You know the West Indies couldn't know Gavaskar at all.